The thing is, I think the fact that if you acknowledge that Leverkusen are the strongest team in the group and that Ferencváros are probably the weakest, relatively speaking, and obviously trying to ignore what happened the last time Celtic played them, then the games against Betis, they become absolutely crucial to me. So I think a positive start, which would include a draw, to be honest, for me, a draw over there, especially given Celtic's struggles away from home. I think that would be a real positive result, even if it was a draw rather than a win. I think you mentioned it in your preview with David Whitworth as well, that Celtic don't do well in Spain. It's 15 out of 18 games they've lost or something. So even considering all of that, I think if you offer anyone a draw right now, they would take it.
Yeah, I would imagine so, because I think that you're bang on there with your assertion that Leverkusen should win this group and Ferencváros should finish bottom. So it probably could come down to how Betis and Celtic get on against each other if the other results go as expected, probably between Leverkusen, Celtic, and Ferencváros and Celtic. There's not really much margin for error in these games, and if Betis do get the better of Celtic on Thursday, I suppose it just means that Celtic have to match whatever happens when they come to Glasgow. Is it late November, early December?
Mm-hmm. I think, obviously we know all too well you can't write off Ferencváros as just like, oh, well, they should finish bottom. But, yes, they should. But Betis might go into it thinking, oh, well, we should be beating Ferencváros, maybe harder against Leverkusen, and it's a toss-up between us and Celtic. But Celtic they do know all too well very, very recently what Ferencváros can do. All right, it's different teams, different players. But regardless, it's weird how these things come back to bite you again. So I think Celtic need to be on their guard and really be not taking it for granted. Not that I think they will, but I think we can't afford to be doing that.
I was looking back at Celtic's opening European group stage fixtures each season, and they tend not to get off to winning ways pretty much all the time. So I think Celtic have to break that trend, as well as the fact that they don't win in Spain, generally speaking, either. So there are a couple of trends that need broken here. Rosenborg was the last time Celtic won the opening fixture of a group stage game. That was only 3 years ago, mind you. But apart from that, Celtic have been beaten by big hitters here. It's not like they're underachieving, but it's AC Milan a couple of times, Barca a couple of times, PSG, Atletico Madrid, Ajax, Salzburg, and then a couple of other ones, one of the Tel Avivs and Rennes as well. Celtic have failed to beat in the opening day. So Celtic will need to prove that their own history wrong if they're gonna come back from Betis here with a win. But I think a draw is very much a good start.
No, I agree with you. I think there's a few trends that need to be broken there. I think there's everything that you just mentioned. There's also the general away form that needs to be rectified at some stage. And as much as you don't want to be going, oh well, don't even look for a win, I do think they will look for a win. I think if they do come away with a draw, though, which I think is what we're trying to point out, if they do come away with a draw, then I think that is a massively positive result. And I think given general away struggles as well, it could help kickstart a better run away from home in general too.
Well, the next game's against Leverkusen in Glasgow, isn't it? Before double header against Ferencváros. So the last thing that Celtic needs really is to be languishing before they have the double header against Ferencváros. You want to, and again, not to discount or disrespect them because they have beaten Celtic recently, but that's the double header you want to use to build on a good start, not to salvage something after a poor start.
I agree with that. I think if you go in, touch wood, they don't, but if you go in, for instance, having lost the first two games, then that is exactly what they would be doing. It would be a massive pressure game, two massive pressure games, and it's almost not the kind of feeling you want getting into those games. As you say, you would rather have a kind of positive feeling getting into it to build through those two games to prepare you for the kind of finale.
Yeah, so if Celtic can take a point from Betis and then try and deal with Leverkusen, who are the favourites, they're a class team. So, we'll see what Celtic can take from Leverkusen in that regard. But Betis away, probably a closer game, I think, than what Leverkusen might be in a couple of weeks' time. We'd have a few comments coming in. Josep Ali's asking about the back four that might start against Betis. At the weekend, there were a few changes. Carter Vickers came in for his debut as well. Sean, do you think that it is going to be the same back four that played at the weekend?
No, I don't. I don't think it will be. I think we talked about it yesterday. I thought it was quite harsh on Stephen Welsh not to keep his starting spot. That said, Carter Vickers done well. Get man of the match, scored a goal. I think he'll keep the two centre backs together, Carter Vickers and Starfelt for this one. But I think it's probably because he won't want to change too much in the back line, and I suspect he's going to need to deal with Greg Taylor probably not being fit. And I think that, to me, I've got a sneaking suspicion that if Ralston is fit, which it's been suggested he will be, I think Ralston will come back in at right back, and Juranovic might do a stint at left back again like he did at Ibrox, to compensate for the fact that Taylor was out, or Taylor is out. So for that reason, I don't necessarily think Welsh will come back in. I don't think he'll want to change that much of his back four. I think he'll maybe stick with the two centre backs. Obviously, that is dependent on Ralston being okay for the game as well. If he isn't, then you would imagine it would be Adam Montgomery has to fill in at left back, because if you remember, Ball and goalie's a non-factor. He was left out of the group stage squad. So that's not even a consideration now. So it would be Montgomery, if not Juranovic. I think, I would have no problem throwing Montgomery in, but I do think because he's not spent that much time at fullback, there's certain decision-making concerns and stuff that he might not want to pitch him straight in. But that said, he came on when Taylor had to go off against AZ Alkmaar, and he done well. He was largely fine against Ross County on Saturday as well under the same circumstances, but I just feel that Postecoglou might go for the same as he did at Ibrox and use Juranovic there at left back.
Juranovic didn't do a bad job at Ibrox in that position. I thought I think he was rated quite highly in the Celtic Ways player ratings, wasn't he? Juranovic, he had a pretty good debut considering the circumstances.
It was decent, aye. You obviously, and you saw it at Ibrox, you lose a bit of continuity, a bit of flow with a right footer over there, constantly checking back onto his right foot. But he is comfortable enough on the ball, and fundamentally, if Postecoglou can trust him to do a job there at Ibrox on his debut, why would they not trust him to do it for Betis away?
It will be tough though for Adam Montgomery. He is a very inexperienced player, and looking at Betis, there's some of their attackers. Nabil Fekir is probably the name that will jump out at most people. They've also got, and I forgot this until yesterday when I was doing my research, they've got Christian Teo, the former Barca winger that ended up at Porto for a wee while. So, in the attacking and the wing positions, they're not bad. Joaquin, he's in his 40th year now, but still going pretty strong. So yeah, they've got more than enough ammunition there to make life difficult for Celtic. So massive night for Montgomery, or anyone to be honest, who plays, because Ralston was trusted in European football a few years ago. And we had that incident with Neymar, and Celtic were pumped a few times in the group stage that season. But he's gone some way to a bit of redemption this season, Ralston. So maybe this is the next step for him to do it in the group stage of European football.
There's also the consideration that this might be one of those games where Celtic don't dominate possession. Like, Betis are obviously a team that are good and comfortable in possession, and it might be that Celtic need to adapt to playing without the ball for longer spells than they're used to, and almost Ralston might be better suited to that, if you know what I mean. Not better suited than Juranovic, just in terms of if it's between maybe Montgomery playing at left back or Juranovic switching and Ralston coming in. It's essentially between Ralston and Montgomery in that instance. And I would think maybe Ralston maybe be more comfortable in that kind of game, judging by what we've seen so far this season. The AZ game probably sticks out as being that game so far where possession was kind of more even. Celtic tend to dominate the ball in all the other games. They lost that game, albeit it was an aggregate victory. And as I said, Montgomery came on and done okay. But I think Ralston had another really good game that night. And just in general, we were talking about it when we were doing our predicted lineups for the Ross County game. That was obviously before we knew that Ralston was going to miss it. That it was almost now is the time you'll see if Ralston had actually made that jersey his own. an avenue to keep getting that game time right away could be if Taylor is, as I say, Taylor maybe misses out on Thursday. Juranovic switches and Ralston finds himself back in the starting lineup right away.
Yeah. He has. I think he has made the impression on Postecoglou. He played all games this season until the one at the weekend. A good point coming in here from Robert Campbell. Betis had a game last night on a Monday ahead of a Thursday Europa League game. Now that's really strange. I think it's because of the international break. Some games were moved. I think actually a few were postponed altogether because of the coronavirus situation. But Betis's was moved last night. They won 2-1. They scored a last-minute goal against Granada. Sergio Canales scored in the 89th minute. So I don't actually know just how much these sort of things affect a team. I know that managers and players, they do like to trot this out, the schedule. And I do think the schedule is very hectic and probably unfair on players now with European football, domestic leagues and cups and international football. It feels like, certainly at the top level, they never stop. But I think that Betis, in this case, probably have a wee right to feel this is slightly unfair. We've got a Europa League opener on Thursday and our opponents have had 2 extra days.
I mean, it's a benefit for Celtic, obviously, but I mean, Celtic have had that themselves already this season. Like, that run of fixtures at the start of the season, that it's just like, obviously you're saying Monday to Thursday, so you get Tuesday, Wednesday, and then playing in the Thursday. Celtic had runs like that, have a couple of runs like that already this season after the Jablonec game for the Hearts League opener on a Friday night. You had not the Friday night, the cup game, sorry. Then you had again. I think it was the 15th, and then you had the 16th, 17th. They were playing again in the 18th, and they played again the 21st and stuff like that. Celtic have already had a few runs like that this season, so I don't think they'll have much sympathy.
We've got a comment actually here from Spain, Daniel Arabal. Hola. So if you've got any information on Betis, Daniel, feel free please to get in touch with it. We've got a comment from Alexander as well, wondering about up front. Instinct says, for me, Sean, that it will be a Jetty that continues, and don't think he'll throw Giakoumakis in. What about you?
I think it probably will be that. I mean, I've done a piece today basically looking at the kind of who can fill in for Kyogo up front, and if they can fill in, if you know what I mean, because of what he does is quite special for Celtic so far in terms of setting the tone and stuff, and basically, like, obviously go and give it a read and see the expanded version, but Ajeti and Giakoumakis, their games are so different to Kyogo's. They don't really give you what he gives you. They give you different qualities. So there's that kind of debate as well. But right now, it's almost beggars can't be choosers either, because if Giakoumakis wasn't fit for to play on Saturday or even be on the bench on Saturday, you'd imagine it really is only Ajeti for Thursday. Even if Giakoumakis is ready for the bench, you would imagine it won't be from the start. A left field suggestion that I put in for at any point for however short a spell in the next 6 games, if you're wanting somebody to try and replicate what Kyogo gives you in terms of the movement and the pressing and the speed of thought and stuff, is why not throw Abada or Forrest up there and see what happens at some stage. But I don't think that will happen. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that is something he's going to do. But if you're looking for the kind of thing Kyogo can give you, why not for a short stint maybe throw one of them up and see. But no, I agree with you. I think it'll be Ajeti. I think he'll get his chance on Thursday.
I was about to proffer the exact same thing to you. I feel like if we're talking about centre forwards only, Giakoumakis and Ajeti and Kyogo all offer completely different things, right? But if you do want to replicate the sort of style that Kyogo brings to the team, then yeah, Abada probably is the closest thing. He's small, agile, quick up here as well as down there. And I think that the way that he can live on the final shoulder, and look, let's not forget, he's had a good goal scoring start for Celtic as well. He scored a good few goals, I think it's 4 or 5 already for Celtic, so he knows where the net is. And if you give him the opportunities, I think that, bear in mind his goal return back in Israel as well, then yeah, I think that he would take a fair few chances. And then looking at his transfer market here, he has played centre forward before, right winger the vast majority of time, but he's played centre forward 7 times in his career, and he scored 4 goals from that position. So that's better than 50% strike rate from centre forward for Liel Abada. So if James Forrest is fit, and then you want to play Jota maybe on the other side, Abada could be the one that makes way on the right side for Forrest and comes and plays centre forward while Kyogo Furahashi's not fit.
Well, listen, I mean, as I say, I've proffered it as an admittedly left field suggestion on that article, looking at the merits of each of the replacements. But I think there is an argument to be made, even for a short stint, even if he fancies a short stint of know what this game could cry out for, know what this game's crying out for, somebody that can do what Kyogo can do. Fundamentally, I don't think Ayeti and Giakoumakis can do that. That's not to say they won't be effective. I think they could be. And also in that article, I've kind of mentioned it on this with you before as well. I've almost made a slightly odd comparison between Giakoumakis and Tim Cahill. Based on Postecoglou's time as Australia manager, where he kind of, like, everybody talks about how he won't sacrifice his principles, and he won't in the sense that he wants attacking football, but it doesn't. It's not like he's an ideologue for tiki taka. It's attacking football that he wants. It's not necessarily always passing it about like that. He does like crosses. Sometimes he obviously prefers cutbacks for kind of higher quality chances, but he's not averse to flighted crosses either. And Giakoumakis would eat them up, you would think. I mean, Ayeti scored twice from flighted crosses at the weekend. And to bring it back to that Cahill thing, when he was Australia manager, he realised what he had was someone up front with Tim Cahill, who was never a flair player, but he was renowned for his aerial prowess. And that's what Giakoumakis is going to bring, one-touch finishes and aerial prowess. And he kind of adapted the Australia game plan to take advantage of that. So there's no reason why, if Giakoumakis plays, the instructions become play to his strengths when you get into the final third, rather than he's never going to do that, because they wouldn't have signed someone he was never going to use.
Yeah, well, the Ange Ball style is, I mean, it's as well as getting the best out of the players you've got. I mean, it's for the supporters. It's about that rip roaring aesthetic pleasure that you get from it, right? But as well in football, there's an efficiency that's got to be prioritised at times, and I think if Cahill was able to provide that with Australia, then Giakoumakis can do the same for Celtic. You know, he's there to make life difficult for defenders and stick the ball in the back of the net when it comes in with one touch. And I think that is a massively underrated component sometimes of a striker's game, how well they can control the ball with their forehead or their instep first time and make sure that it gets past the goalkeeper. If Celtic have someone like that, and the comparison I would draw would be Jelovic when he was at Rangers. When the ball went to him in the box, more often than not, he stuck it away first time. And I think the Celtic could, considering the strikers that they've got at their disposal now after Edouard leaving and with Kyogo being a different kind of forward, then yeah, if Giakoumakis can bring that, then massive, absolutely massive for Celtic.
Yeah, I noticed there's a comment here. I wonder what you think of this, Andy. It's Ange should do everything he can to get at least a draw on Thursday, basically. But is Ange Ball ever that pragmatic? I don't think that necessarily. It's got to be pragmatic to say that you do everything you can to get a draw. I think we've alluded to it a few times on the show this year that, given the style that he plays and the fact that they are going to concede chances in most games, that almost the best way to go about getting a positive result, and as I say, a draw would be a positive result, is to go on the attack, because that is the way that the team is kind of put together to be. So I don't necessarily think it would be pragmatic to go for a draw, unless by going for the draw you mean don't go for the win, just settle, hope for a 0-0, because I don't think that will work.
I think going for the draw, Celtic would still have to press from the front and go about their game the way that they do, rather than sit back and invite Betis onto them, because I'm not sure that's a system that this brand new squad, remember, is that well versed in. They've been being coached in a very specific way, I would imagine, over the past 2 months or so. So I'm not sure that now going to Betis, a team that are very, very good on the ball, is the right time to completely change that, no?
Exactly. I mean, I don't think they will do it. So if that's what was meant by pragmatic and go for the draw, I just don't think it's going to. I think that is his point, right enough. I think that's Frank's point. I think that they're not. He's never really been that pragmatic in terms of he will play for the draw, but I don't think in this instance playing for the draw means actually going and sitting in and hoping they don't concede. I would think playing for the draw would be doing what Celtic do best, which is go forward, go for the win, and if it ends up a draw, then that is a really good result. I don't necessarily think it's an opportunity to sit back. I just don't think Celtic are equipped to do that.
I think the midfield would have to change as well for Celtic if they wanted to approach the game that way, because Callum McGregor, look, he's a really good single pivot when Celtic have possession the majority of the time. But I think in this case, then you would probably need to include at least one or both of McCarthy and Sorrell to sit in front of the defenders, and then maybe play Turnbull alone or McGregor or Rogic in front of them, because I'm not sure that that's a style of play that would be well versed to Callum McGregor alone as a holding mid.
No, that's true, and I also think, and this is where it's a fine balance, and it's all right in the league when you're at home on a big pitch against smaller teams and stuff. Callum McGregor as a single pivot has been outstanding for the kind of offensive, keeping the play ticking over, taking the ball off the centre backs, keeping everything quite calm when maybe the centre backs maybe were getting a bit antsy. But you're correct, when it comes to actual defensive midfielder qualities, then you would probably be looking at least someone alongside him, if not two players, and moving him forward. But that almost disrupts the way that they want to play the ball through the thirds as well, if you know what I mean. So it's almost, it could be a catch-22 for Celtic. You end up getting too bogged down with players taking too many touches in the middle and not getting it forward quick enough when it's not McGregor in that role. So it's, I mean, as I said when this draw came out, it was going to be a difficult group, and nothing that I've seen from Celtic so far has changed my mind that it's going to be difficult.
If Celtic do go and get a positive result here, in fact, not a positive result, a win, would that be off the top of my head? Would the last time a result like that would have been gained? Would that have been the Spartak Moscow game when Samara scored a header in the last minute? Would that the last time Celtic maybe picked up a really impressive away win in the group stage?
I mean, as impressive as that Spartak, probably, because that Spartak one was very, very important. That was a big game. There's been other wins along the road since then, but I'd say that was a massive win. I remember that.
Lazio.
Oh, sorry, Christ, of course.
Yeah.
Aye,
of course. Thanks for the reminder there. Thanks for the reminder. Boy, Lazio, yeah, of course.
Aye, right enough in charm. Aye.
Yeah.
No, that's true. Aye, we've had that there. Aye. Yeah. Well done, guys. There you go. Calling us right out there.
We are forgetting about 3 or 4 comments coming straight in there. I totally forgot about the Lazio game. Oh, another comment here from Jotty Boy about the left back situation. We were saying about Montgomery. Liam Scales is in the Europa League squad, Sean.
I just don't think he's going to come straight in for this. Possibly, but if I'm right in saying I don't necessarily think he's actually played left back all that often. It's been left wing back. Okay, there's maybe not that much difference, but he's played left wing back, he's played centre back and stuff. I don't know. He could come in. It's always an option, but I just suspect, for some reason, that he's going to move Juranovic to left back if Taylor isn't fit, and play Ralston at right back, which, I mean, I've no problem with. They've done it at Ibrox. All right, they lost that game, but Juranovic played well and Ralston played well.
We'll find out, because I'm sure there'll be a press conference today or tomorrow where fitness updates and etc. might be given. So I'm sure yourself and Tony, when you're on tomorrow, we'll have a much clearer view of how Celtic might be lining up. So, yeah, everyone join Sean and Tony tomorrow, and thanks for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Cheers, Andy.